Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dylan. Today we are talking final BAFTA predictions. The awards are on Sunday. They are so close. There's a lot of categories that kind of seem locked up, but it's BAFTA. BAFTA's weird. They go off the rails every year. We looked at last year, Everything Everywhere. One win. All quiet, all the wins.
People didn't expect Everything Ever All at Once to win many things. They expected it to win Kwan, which it lost to Barry Keoghan. They expected it to win editing, which it won, but it wasn't like people were expecting it to win Best Picture or Screenplay, because people were expecting Banshees of Inisherin to do that. But instead of Banshees, what won? All Quiet on the Western Front won Best Film. We could get even more of a surprise. But that said, I think this is pretty obvious how a lot of these things are going to go, because Oppenheimer feels like the type of movie that they are going to shower in love all over the place.
The record's 9 wins. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969. It won 9 categories. Oppenheimer, it's looking to steamroll this year, and I would say it's top 2 in 11 different categories. But can it win 9 of those? That is another question. But a category where I feel really good about it winning is Best Feature.
Yeah, Best Feature feels pretty wrapped up for Oppenheimer. The Best Feature category does not have the best overlap with Best Picture. Often what we see is the winner here will be a front runner for the Oscar that will then lose the Oscar. Nomadland is really the only film in recent history where it's won BAFTA and then gone on to win the Oscar. So there is a BAFTA curse that's been going on pretty much every year since probably 12 Years a Slave in 2013. Every other year, BAFTA has gotten it wrong. This year, I think it's just Oppenheimer. But what if it's not Oppenheimer? I want to put that forward. What if they don't love Oppenheimer the way we expect them to? What would win? Do you think it would be Poor Things, or do you think it would be Anatomy of a Fall?
I think that's a great question, because I think they both have the potential packages. And what I think we'll see is throughout the awards ceremony, it'll be very clear what is number 2. Anatomy could win Actress, could win Casting, Original Screenplay, International Feature. Poor Things can win Actress, it can win Adapted, it can win a lot of these tech categories like Makeup and Hairstyle and Cinematography, where it could upset. At this moment, I would say Poor Things would be the potential upset just because of its total nomination haul, but I would not be shocked if Anatomy does win this to continue the streak of BAFTA winner doesn't carry over to the Oscar. But what I would like to say for that side a little bit is a lot of these more recent Oscar Best Picture winners are very more American type films. BAFTA would not care about them. Coda, definitely not. Green Book, no. Everything Everywhere, no. So there's so many winners as of late
Parasite.
that just don't say. Parasite, yeah, but 1917 is such BAFTA core. So like there hasn't really been a movie that's won Best Picture, with maybe the exception, you could say, of Nomadland, of maybe Parasite, of 12 Years a Slave, that does appeal to both branches. Obviously, Everything Everywhere got all the nominations, but like you said, it wasn't expected to win much. People say, oh, BAFTA hates Everything Everywhere. If they hated it, it wouldn't have gotten picture, it wouldn't have gotten director, it wouldn't have got all these nominations.
It wouldn't have
They
won
just liked
editing.
something else more. And I think that's what happens all those years, is the movie that does win the Oscar shows up, but it just doesn't win. Where this year, I think we have a Nomadland year, like you talked about, where Best Picture, there is no real big American film. Maybe Oppenheimer is a big American film.
Oppenheimer is the big American film.
but it still has that it still has that British skew to it, though.
Well, I mean, Nolan is British. He's British American, so I think it counts. Anyways, that is the start of the Oppenheimer sweep we're going to be talking about here, because it is going to win a shit ton of categories. And here's another one that feels like a pretty easy win, which is Best Director. Christopher Nolan is taking this. Do you have any disagreement with that?
Christopher Nolan has this in the bag. I said a few weeks ago, Nolan could have the most director wins in any season, beating out Chloe Zhao, and I think he's currently on pace for that. Even if it loses Best Picture, I think Nolan still wins this award. We need an Oppenheimer counter. Put this above us, Matt, on the edit here. Put a new Oppenheimer head every award it has, and let's see how close to 9 we get at the end of this video.
The only way that Christopher Nolan loses, I don't think there's a way he loses. I'm going to say that up front. There is no way he loses for this award, but if there was an upset, Jonathan Glazer would win here, I would say.
Yeah, I guess he would be 2, but if Anatomy wins Picture, I guess Trey would be 2nd, but that doesn't matter. Nolan has us winning.
Yeah, Nolan has this in a bag.
Oppenheimer counter for Dylan's to go to 3 here, because I also have Cillian Murphy winning Actor.
I also have Cillian Murphy winning Actor. I've seen some people say that Paul Giamatti's going to win. He's going to sweep the season. No, he's not. He is not going to sweep the season. I feel insane every time I talk about this, because people in the comments are like, oh, you guys are just stubborn. I see no world where Paul Giamatti wins BAFTA. Cillian Murphy is winning, and if it's not Cillian Murphy, I would say Bradley Cooper is before Paul Giamatti at BAFTA specifically. I wouldn't say the same about the Oscars. I wouldn't say the same about SAG, but I would say for BAFTA, because think about last year, they went for Austin Butler and Elvis. They like those Beatty musician performances. They like when you're slathered up in makeup. They love that shit. Keep in mind as well, Bradley Cooper has a directing nomination at BAFTA as well. They really liked Maestro. They also really liked The Holdovers. I just don't think Giamatti's in the running for a win here specifically. It's just Murphy.
I see people make the comparison like, oh, no one thought Will Smith would win, but I think the difference between Will Smith and Paul Giamatti, they're not in the same category. Will Smith is so much more of a star, so much more of a name, so much more of people who think he is overdue than Giamatti has been this whole season. I think the only reason people are making that comparison is just because they want to see Giamatti win, but I just don't see the angle here. Sure, SAG, it could happen. BAFTA, I just don't see it. So that's a move us over to lead actress. You asked me 2 weeks ago, Emma Stone locked up. Asked me today, I think it's kind of a question. Sandra Hüller's here. Anatomy's in casting, and I know we've talked a lot about casting. I probably dig too much on the stat. Casting's a brand new award. It's been around for 4 years. But with the exception of Rocks, which is like a once in a blue moon type of thing in terms of a winner, they really like giving it to an acting winner. And when you look at the category, your choices are Randolph and Hüller. Every year they're given to at least to one. And every year besides last year, they've given it to at least 2 winners. So if there's a second winner, maybe it's Hüller. Again, it's 4 years. It's not a real stat. It's just something that you notice. Still think Stone's winning this, but this will be the real sign who's number 2.
Absolutely. This is the battle for the second place slot behind Oppenheimer, because this will show the strength of Anatomy of a Fall or the strength of Poor Things. I really think it's Emma Stone, and I'm going to be honest with you, if Emma Stone loses here, I kind of lose a lot of faith in her for the Oscar. If she wins here, I am keeping her for the Oscar unless Lily Gladstone wins SAG, which is expected at this point. But if Emma Stone loses here, then I'm probably gonna have Lily Gladstone.
That's going to move us over to the continuation of the Oppenheimer sweep, because in supporting actor, Robert Downey Jr. just feels so right for this award. But again, Oppie's sweep just seems weird to win so much above the line. But I know it's happening. It just feels a little weird. But I know there's nothing else. Because like, if something else would happen, it wouldn't be at BAFTA. It would be at SAG. It's Downey all the way. I like him. I'm really excited to rewatch Oppenheimer for a Best Picture Revisiting series to see how his performance holds up. Like, 5 months removed from the last viewing of it.
Last year, BAFTA also gave another different movie 2 acting wins, because they gave Kerry Condon and Barry Keoghan their supporting wins. So it's not that out of the ordinary for them to go all in on one film for acting prizes. So I'm not thinking too hard about Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. winning. Robert Downey Jr. is winning because there's no competition in this category. Normally, I would say maybe Ryan Gosling is a little bit of competition. He's not here. Not at all. It's just Robert Downey Jr.
That moves to supporting actress. Apparently, people don't like this take that I've had. I just feel like if BAFTA's going to give us a curveball, they're not going to go 4 at the Oscar. This is where the curveball could come. More so, I think more so than Giamatti or Cooper. Maybe Hüller over Stone. But I think this is where the curveball could come. Randolph's won everything. Everything. Critics groups, big groups, anywhere she can win that she's at, she has won. But supporting's where they went crazy last year. They said, screw Kwan, we don't care how many nominations your movie gets, we are just going with the person that we like more, who got a Rising Star win, and also is in a film that we just want to award more. BAFTA can be weird, and Blunt is in the movie that we think is going to win a lot of awards. She is a big movie star. She's British. There is, I think, a small chance. I'm not predicting it. Again, I want to be sure to say, again, that this is not my prediction, but it's a thing I'm very much thinking about, where if it happens, I'll be like, of course. The signs were there.
I can see the argument you're making. I really don't think it will happen, because I do believe that Da'Vine Joy Randolph is just way too strong to fail. I would actually say that if we get one of these awards going off of what the Oscars are going to do, it would be actress. It would be maybe Best Actor. I think supporting is pretty locked up. Robert Downey Jr. doesn't have any competition. Da'Vine Joy Randolph doesn't have any competition. As much as, like, you're making a good case for this being a great opportunity for BAFTA to recognize a great British actress like Emily Blunt, but I don't know if that'll happen. I'm not convinced by it.
The one thing I would have needed to see for me to actually predict this is Blunt to win anywhere else. She has nowhere else that she's won at before.
Well, because
Keegan
her
at least
performance
had
doesn't
one
even deserve a
precursor win.
nomination.
I see both sides to the Blunt thing. I think in this, with the lineup that we have here of people who were actually contenders, she would probably be my number 5. But if we're taking all the supporting actress people of the whole year, yeah, she doesn't deserve the nomination. But if we look at the actual Oscar contenders, sure, I can see it, sort of thing. But like, yeah, Blunt would have won somewhere before. I would have been all for this, but she's won nothing before. At least Keegan had like the London Film Critics or something, but
yeah.
Blunt has
that's exactly it, because that was a showcase of maybe BAFTA might lean towards Keoghan, was that he won London Film Critics Circle. Here's a thought. What if there is a surprise in supporting actress and it's not from one of the Oscar nominees? What if it's from Sandra Hüller or from Claire Foy? I don't think that's going to happen because, again, we would have seen something like that elsewhere. But if there was an upset, I would actually lean towards one of them over Emily Blunt.
Claire Foy actually is kind of tasty for a possible upset because All of Us Strangers just came out in the UK. It's apparently doing really good box office for the type of film that it is.
And BAFTA's loved it.
And regardless of Andrew Scott being lead actor, the film being in picture, it hit everywhere else. I still think one of these categories, we will know the winner once we hit casting. If it's holdovers, obviously Randolph is going to continue with that trend. If it's anatomy, Hüller probably is going to follow up there. If it's strangers, maybe it could be Foy. But I do think however casting goes will influence some of these acting categories up top.
So let's talk about original screenplay. This is an exciting category because this is going to be very deciding for what happens at the Oscars. There's really 2 ways I can see this going down, and I'm currently leaning towards Anatomy of a Fall wins. It takes the BAFTA win, it takes the Golden Globe win, and then it wins the Oscar. But the other possible route that I can see with this is the holdovers could win and prove its strength. Now, that doesn't seem likely to me because the holdovers feels much, much weaker than Anatomy of a Fall, but there's a world. There's absolutely, most certainly, a world where the holdovers just wins based on the charm of the screenplay itself.
If that happens, that's an Oscar that's not here. I think Anatomy kind of has this in the bag. I mean, the international or the European Film Awards loved Anatomy. They went all over it. I think there's like definitely an overlap of BAFTA to European Film Awards voters. And I think if we're kind of considering Anatomy as number 2, impossible to win film, I think it has to win screenplay. Obviously, holdovers would probably be the runner-up. Maybe Barbie. I know BAFTA didn't like it overall.
Maybe
or Past
Lives is a runner-up.
But still, I just think Anatomy is so far out ahead in this category here. But I do respect the number 2 option.
If the holdovers is truly potentially winning the Oscar, can it win without any other precursor wins? Is that still possible? If it loses BAFTA and Anatomy has Golden Globe and it has the BAFTA, and we don't know the winner of WGA, but it wouldn't be Anatomy. It would probably be Barbie. Is the holdovers still a possible winner if it loses here?
Well, I mean, I've kind of stayed consistent with this for months now. I don't think holdovers is number 2 at the Oscar. I think that's Past Lives, and I think that's reflective here as well, where Anatomy's just winning. There's not a competition. I don't think holdovers is going to have a precursor win, and that's why I don't think it will win at the Oscar.
Now let's move to adapted screenplay. This is one of the most hotly contested categories that we have here because we've got quite a few big movies in here, such as Poor Things, Oppenheimer, and this is not winning BAFTA. It's not winning BAFTA, but this is potentially an Oscar winner that is American Fiction. Currently, I'm leaning Oppenheimer.
So if American Fiction wins this, it's at 100% winning the Oscar,
Absolutely.
regardless of the Barbie category change. However, I don't think Oppenheimer's hitting those 9 wins. I don't think it's going to become the record holder for BAFTA. And I think a category where they may be like, we're kind of bored of voting Oppenheimer. I know that's not how people vote, but a category where it seems like they just divert is here. And I think it's with Poor Things. I think Tony McNamara has some sort of respect. I think that they will throw him a bone here. I think they really like Poor Things overall. You'll see that as we go through the tech categories. And I think it'll be weird if Poor Things wins like 2-3 techs, British film, and that's it. It could lose actress, it could lose adapted. I think that it's going to take at least one of those, if not both of those. So I'm going Poor Things, but I think Poor Things winning here doesn't really mean much for the Oscar. Oppenheimer winning here means a lot for the Oscar. American Fiction winning here means the Oscar is done. I think if Oppenheimer wins here, Barbie could still swoop in for the win. I think if Poor Things wins here, Barbie could still swoop in for the win, or American Fiction.
If Oppenheimer wins here, I think it comes down to Oppenheimer versus American Fiction. Maybe Barbie. It's either Oppenheimer is a win contender or it's completely out of the game.
That's going to move us into a two-dog race, Best Animated Feature. Boy and the Heron has the upset at Golden Globe. Maybe it's not an upset, but it has the Globe win. Spider-Verse is 100% going to win the PGA. Yep. Annie is either Spider-Verse or Nimona, and that leaves BAFTA. Spider-Verse or Heron. Who's going to get their second win?
Annie could go Boy and the Heron. They could really go Boy and the Heron and just be like, we want to pay tribute to one of the great masters of animation. Honestly, I would expect that more at the Annie Award than BAFTA. BAFTA is the most basic shit when it comes to animation. They don't care about animation. They are even worse than the Oscars when it comes to just picking a movie that my kid likes. They always pick the basic pick. Now, I hate saying the basic pick is Spider-Verse because I love Spider-Verse. People are getting way too in their heads about like, oh, BAFTA's artsier. They're going to pick the artsy film. They're going to pick the Miyazaki. I don't think they give a shit.
I would have believed it if Heron showed up in an international feature. But it didn't, because it was eligible, and it didn't. I think if it showed up there, I would believe that take, but because it didn't show up there, I think Spider-Verse has this. I think it then follows up with PGA, it follows up with Annie, and it follows up winning the Oscar.
And every guild. Every guild is going to go Spider-Verse. We've already seen that with the production designers. Boy and the Heron doesn't even have an editing guild nomination. We're going to see every guild go Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I think that Heron winning that Globe was just this new Globe, so that like the international stuff, international animated film from a legend, of course they're going to go that way. That's going to lead us into a category where, again, talking about a race, why do people think this is a race? I don't know. Documentary feature. It's been Mario Pull all along. The only roadblock, which you mentioned all the way back in like March, was does it make the short list? If it makes the short list, it's good. It made the short list. It won DGA the other night. It's probably going to win PGA. It's going to just win everything else here on the way out, let alone the documentary itself being amazing. The story behind it is remarkable. And then when you give him a speech, it only amplifies that even more. There's no alternative. BAFTA's not going with a celebrity doc. They're not going with anything like that.
You know, they could, but still has been the overwhelming critics frontrunner. Overwhelming. I don't get it. I will not pretend to understand the critics' love for Still. I don't get it. It's not like Michael J. Fox is a big critics' darling. It makes no sense to me. So what we could see here is if Still upsets, it's the only thing I think could upset. If it does win, then that just shows that the Oscar is not locked for 20 Days in Mariupol. In fact, I would go as far as saying if 20 Days in Mariupol loses here, it loses the Oscar to Bobby Wine or Four Daughters. I don't think that's going to happen. I really think 20 Days in Mariupol just wins this. Also because it's also nominated in International Feature, which shows that it has strength outside of this category. This is not a race. It is 20 Days in Mariupol. It wins this. But if it doesn't, then that means that 20 Days is losing the Oscar.
That's going to bring us to a few categories. I think we can talk about all these kind of in unison. The possible Poor Things upset categories. And I think the first one we talk about is one that you and I have kind of been strong on all year, where no one else has really kind of bid on it. But as we saw with the British Cinematography Association, Poor Things beat Oppenheimer. Is their track record the best? No, but their track record is kind of good for BAFTA, and I think Poor Things continues here, and I think if Oppenheimer wins ASC, it's good for the Oscar. If Oppenheimer loses ASC, I think that's when a possible upset could happen. Maybe it's Poor Things, maybe it's Killers, but at the moment, I'm predicting Poor Things here, even if I have Oppenheimer for the Oscar.
Completely agree with you. When I saw Poor Things, I was like, that feels like a cinematography winner. But then Oppenheimer kept winning everything. I've been riding on the possibility of a Poor Things upset all year long. Now, Oppenheimer's still the odds-out frontrunner because it's such a strong film at BAFTA, but we did see BSC go Poor Things, and I think we could see that here. Like you said, Dylan, it's all going to come down to whatever wins at ASC is what I'm going to predict for the Oscar.
I don't know if I would predict Killers if it wins ASC for the Oscar. I still think there's a world where ASC wants to reward Pareto for his year. I'm not predicting that. Again, with the blunt versus Randolph thing. I'm not predicting that, but I could see that happen just because Hoyt van Hoytema is such a name, but I still think there's people out there who don't think it's his best work, and it's more for the inventing the IMAX footage, where this would be kind of like, hey, look how good of a thing you did, look how great your career has been sort of thing award, and I think that's why the critics showed up for him. Cinematography, Poor Things, I think is the most showy, but at the same time, I think that people in that branch could kind of be like, you're kind of just showing off. There's no reason to change these formats. There's no reason to do black and white, do color. Even if it looks super cool, there's no reason for it. It doesn't fit the story. Maybe there's not much love from the ASC for the win. It could happen. I think all three of them could win at ASC, but BAFTA's going Poor Things.
If it's Oppenheimer, then I do think ASC just follows suit and goes Oppenheimer. I'm with you. I'm sticking Poor Things, but I would be stupid if I didn't say that Oppenheimer was probably going to win this.
So we are predicting a Poor Things upset and cinematography, but are we predicting a Poor Things upset in costumes? Because I currently still have Barbie here, but I think that if Barbie loses somewhere, it's going to be here.
Here's an interesting thing that I'm noticing on Gold Derby. Poor Things is ahead for costumes, and Barbie is ahead for production design.
That makes no sense.
And I think it's the opposite. And I've been hearing
agree.
people saying this all year long, that Barbie is a lock for production design, but not for costumes. And that doesn't make sense to me, because Barbie has the most flashy costumes of the year, so in your face with the costumes, while the production design doesn't always feel as jump off the screen, whereas Poor Things kind of always does. And we did just see, let's talk production design as well, I guess, because now I'm on this tangent. We just saw at the Art Directors Guild that Poor Things beat Barbie in the same category. We're not going to see at any other guilds those two line up in the same category ever again. So we're always going to see it split, Poor Things and Barbie, in different categories. But we did see it's stronger in production design. It is stronger in production design, and I'm sticking with that. I would say Barbie is winning costumes, although it's very, very possible that Poor Things wins it, because, you know, they like Poor Things a lot more than they like Barbie. And then for production design, I go Poor Things with a potential small potential for an upset from Barbie.
I hate how often we agree with stuff like this, because I feel like it makes it not as interesting for viewers out there to be like, oh, y'all just agree with everything. But I agree here as well. I think Barbie has costumes. I said it for our Barbie revisiting episode in our Best Picture series, that it just has such showy costumes. It's so noticeable that I think BAFTA will even have to admit we're going with it here.
I am actually going to switch my costume pick to Poor Things.
Ooh, double Poor Things.
I'm going to double up on Poor Things, because thinking about it now, I realize that oftentimes when you're trying to pick which one is going to win which, one of them ends up being wrong. I'm going to ride with Poor Things, because now that I think about it, the only reason I was predicting Barbie for a costume win here was that I needed it to win something against Poor Things to justify it being an Oscar winner. I'm going to hold true to, I do think Barbie wins the Oscar, but I guess I have a hard time believing that if Poor Things wins here. I don't know. I'm thinking back to The Favorite versus Black Panther, and Black Panther wasn't even nominated at BAFTA for costumes. I don't know. I think I'm going to go Poor Things on costumes now that I think about it. I think that they're going to be too snobby to give Barbie a win in anything.
Well, makeup and hairstyling is a category I know that we disagree, and you asked me at the beginning of this episode, what is the potential upset for Oppenheimer? And I said, well, Poor Things wins all of these techs. It would be number 2. I have it winning this tech as well for makeup and hairstyling.
Oh, I love
know
that.
The signs don't point to this. I know the track record is with Kazuhiro, who is Marvel in this category. He's a pioneer of so many things. He did the work for Maestro. And I know BAFTA liked Maestro. Director nomination, Bradley Cooper got in, Carey Mulligan got in, screenplay, all this stuff. BAFTA's very cliquey. They like just giving all the awards to 2 movies. And I could see this a year where Oppie and Poor Things just win everything. Or basically everything. And I think that this carries over to makeup and hairstyling. And I've had Poor Things winning this category since like June, July. And this is his last hurrah. It's his last hurrah. Loses here, will finally switch over to Maestro. But I'm keeping it till BAFTA happens.
That would be my thing too. If Poor Things wins here, I would switch over to it for the Oscars, but until then, I'm keeping Maestro. It just feels much more stereotypically like what people go for in this category. Unfortunately, this is what BAFTA voters, what Oscar voters go for. They like the biopic makeup. They like the prosthetics. Yeah, I also think the argument against Poor Things in makeup is that it's too gross at times. There are going to be some elements of it that make people squeamish. I I can even speak to that. When I saw Poor Things with my partner, she was covering her eyes at certain points, and she loved the movie, but the makeup grossed her out, and they don't typically like that type of thing. So I'm
That is
sticking
true.
Maestro for makeup, but again, if I'm proven wrong, if it's Poor Things, I swap over to that right away.
I guess the biggest knock against Poor Things, besides the grotesqueness of it, and the biggest pro for Maestro, the nose, the wrinkles, it's on screen the whole film. Poor Things, it's there in spurts. The first act, the last act have it in bunches. The middle act, when they're on the boat, there's not much makeup work outside of the little stuff on Emma Stone. Even there's lots of hair work, but as we know, people don't care about hair in these categories. It's
People
makeup
do not
and
care.
hairstyling. They forget there's words after the and symbol. But that's going to move us over to, we just talked about Poor Things winning a few categories. Oppenheimer, sweep continues.
Locked.
Let's add the counter. Editing,
let's just-
score, sound, boom.
We don't even have to talk about these categories. Editing is a lock for Oppenheimer. Score is a lock for Oppenheimer. There is no number 2 in either of those categories. Sound, I would also say, is a lock for Oppenheimer, but there is a small, tiny, itsy bitsy chance that BAFTA goes zone here because it's highbrow, it's a cool win, and it could be something that they just throw it a bone here. BAFTA doesn't hold as tight to the stat of, they have to have the editing and sound winner be the exact same every year, the way that the Oscars do. So I would say we could see an upset for zone, but I think it's just Oppenheimer editing, Oppenheimer score, Oppenheimer sound, and that's it.
I would agree with that. So if you see our counters above our heads, mine's at 7, Matt is at 8. Oppenheimer, it's not in these last few categories. So that is where we have Oppenheimer coming at the end of the day, falling short of Butch Cassidy.
I don't think that there is any chance that it beats the Butch Cassidy record.
It can only tie it, I think.
9. It can tie it. It can't beat it.
I would agree with that. A category where a lot of people said, like, oh, Oppenheimer, it should have been nominated, it should win this award, is visual effects, where I think this will be our most different discussion that we'll have today between what we are predicting to win, because I am still sticking true to what I said about the creator all the way back when we first got that first teaser at CinemaCon. This is winning. It got what it need. BAFTA usually lines up with the Oscar, and I just think this will continue again this year. I hear the cases for other stuff, and I guess BAFTA could go with Napoleon, but Napoleon also kind of underperformed at BAFTA. It missed some categories where it got the Oscar nomination for, and I just feel like the creator just seems so much like a winner, and BAFTA, this is a category where they don't usually think with their own brain. They kind of just fall in line with the consensus.
So BAFTA does often align with the Oscars here, and that's why I'm picking Napoleon, because I have Napoleon as the Oscar winner. The creator feels too clean of a winner. It feels too easy, especially because it's not a film that a lot of people saw. It's not a film that a lot of people talked about. And I would venture to say that I don't believe every Oscar voter is going to watch The Creator. I really don't. I think people will submit their ballots without it. You know what has multiple nominations and has an air of prestige around it? Napoleon. Because it's in costume design, because it's in production design, because it's here. I think people will just jump to say, let's go for Napoleon, because I don't want to watch those other movies. Doesn't matter Napoleon was also a flop. Doesn't matter that it underperformed with critics. I think it carries this air of highbrow prestige, even though it's anything but that. I think that what's going to happen is Napoleon wins here, Napoleon wins VES, Napoleon wins the Oscar.
I would agree that Napoleon's number 2. I am glad that you've come around to it, because I know the last time we talked, you still had Godzilla as the alternative one.
I would say
like to
Godzilla is
say-
the alternative, but it's the alternative to Napoleon.
What I would like to say is, people say no one watched The Creator. The Creator made more money than Godzilla. It made more. It's made 125 million worldwide. People have seen it. It did really well internationally. It just tanked domestically. So like, people have watched The Creator. I just don't get when people are like, oh, no one's seen this movie. But people have seen it.
It's because it has a bad reputation. And when we talk about
a fake reputation, it's not real.
It's a fake reputation, but it's still a reputation. It doesn't matter if something is true if people say it often enough and loud enough. Oscar voters are going to hear The Creator and they're going to think flop. It doesn't matter how much money it's actually made. They are going to carry that association. And to me, that sets us up for a prime upset in the visual effects category.
That's fair, and I will, like, makeup and hairstyling, concede on my Creator push that I've had here recently, that if it loses BAFTA or it loses VES, I will hop over to Napoleon if Napoleon's still to win.
My argument basically for a Napoleon win entirely hinges on BAFTA.
That is going to bring us to some categories that the Oscars currently don't have, like Best Casting, where we talked all about this in an episode we released earlier this week, or maybe it was last week at this time, but still, I think it was a fun discussion, and we talked a little bit about BAFTA's history here. BAFTA, this is its 5th year of having this award. Year 1 gave it to Joker, a big singular performance movie. Year 2 gave it to Rocks, which was more for its youth casting unknowns, getting people that you didn't really think about but was very British. Then year 3 gave it a West Side Story. There's a lot of ways you can go about this. You could say they casted the best ensemble, or you could say that they didn't get big names. You could say that they got diversity. I just think West Side Story is like the perfect casting win. And then last year, you have Elvis, again, one singular performance. So if you look at the nominees this year, honestly, not much here really lines up with a previous winner, like perfectly one for one. But if I were to make cases, Anatomy has the angle for like Joker and Elvis. Holdovers, I guess you could kind of fit
also
for
Milo. Also Milo, because it's somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't think we can ever make one comparisons to other films, but it has the Sandra Hüller thing, which is, like you said, Joker, Elvis, but it also has a kid that they cast perfectly, like The Holdovers, which is my personal pick, because as you said, there's a stat that every year except 2020, this lines up with one of the acting wins. Divine Joy Randolph here is enough, I think, to get this a win, as well as casting Paul Giamatti in that role that is so perfect for him, as well as finding Dominic Sessa. Even though it's a very small ensemble.
Before we started recording, I had Killers of the Flower Moon, just because I think if you're looking at this for a casting perspective, you're going for those unknowns, those background native actors, and Osage representation. However, does BAFTA care about that? I don't think so.
No.
So
evidently
I'm
not.
switching.
How many acting nominations did it get?
Yeah, it just got one, and it was for De Niro. So I think I'm going to switch. I want to be bold and say How to Have Sex, but I'm not going to go with that. And I think I'm going to go with Anatomy, because you made the point about Milo. I think Milo could elevate this. I also think, people think about like this, Snoop should elevate this as well, because you cast a dog who can do all that. I know picking Anatomy here kind of neglects my Emma Stone pick up top, but I just don't know. I don't feel great about any of these. I mean, like last year, I don't know if I would have went with Elvis, but like I would have felt good about West Side Story. But every other year, I probably would have gotten this wrong if we were doing predictions. So who knows? Maybe Anatomy is another shot into the incorrect can.
And then we go to the British Film Award. So often we are compelled to go, oh, well, that film's too big. It's not going to win here. They're going to give it to something else. Like last year, a lot of people were saying it's not going to be Banshees of Inisherin. They're going to do something else because they're going to give Banshees Best Film. Well, they gave it Best British Film and they didn't give it Best Film, and All Quiet won instead. But they never shy away from doubling up on a film that they've awarded other places. So this year, it's between Poor Things and Zone of Interest. And I think it's just Poor Things. It's in Best Film. We know that they like it more widely across the board than Zone of Interest. Zone of Interest just feels like the type of movie that they really appreciate and don't adore, which is the vibe of the movie in general.
Like if Zone was in film, I think it would be a competition. But if you look at times when there's two films that are in Best Film that show up in British film, Promising Young Woman Beat the Father, Three Billboards Over Darkest Hour, they go with the ones that are winning big awards. And here, Zone's not winning a big award, and it's not in the Best Film category, so I agree. I think this is Poor Things. And I mean, like, you made the case for Banshees last year. Poor Things doesn't win Picture. It wins this one.
Even if Poor Things was winning Picture, it's not like they would try and share the love. They would just give it to it here, too.
So we are following up on Best British Film, staying international, at least to us, with Best Foreign Film here. And I think, again, you go back to what film is in your Best Film lineup. It's Anatomy of a Fall. Zone's here, Past Lives is here, Mario Pulls Society of the Snow, but they aren't in the Best Film category. Anatomy is. Anatomy
is here, and Anatomy is likely winning. But that said, I do think there is an argument for Zone of Interest. But it's not a strong argument. It's most likely just going to be Anatomy of a Fall. So yeah, let's stick with Anatomy of a Fall. It makes a lot of sense. And last award here, Rising Star Award. This is a public vote. And interestingly enough, it doesn't often go to the most popular actor here. But I'm going to go with the most popular actor here because not only is Jacob Elordi like a big heartthrob, he's also in Saltburn, and he's also a nominee at BAFTA. To me, Jacob Elordi makes a lot of sense.
You know, you make a great point about Elordi being nominated, but in 2022, Daryl McCormick was nominated. 2021, Aaron DeBose was nominated. 2020, Kingsley Ben-Adir was nominated. None of them won the BAFTA award.
Ooh.
So I am going with AO here. The award is voted by the public. They don't always go for the most popular, but they go for someone who's still got those IG followers. Emma Mackey, pretty big in the UK. Lashana Lynch, pretty big over there. Even if they're losing out to people who were nominated in those main categories. I mean, you go back to 2019, Mikkel Ward beat out Awkwafina. Awkwafina's definitely more popular than Mikkel Ward, but he's the one who walked away with the victory here. So, like, I would not be shocked if it's Elordi. But I would also not be shocked if Mia McKenna-Bruce upset here as well. How to Have Sex is a very popular film over there. Maybe.
I don't know. I don't think it is big enough. I think people know Jacob Elordi. I just think he has the it status at the moment that some of the others don't. Also, how often do they go with a non-British performer? Is Jacob Elordi Australian? I'm thinking about that right now. He is, so he's also not British.
Yeah, I'm going back to some previous winners. Emma Mackey, Lashana Lynch. 2019 was Mikkel Ward. 2018 was Letitia Wright, who beat out Jessie Buckley. Cynthia Erivo. Barry Keoghan was here.
You know what I'm hearing? All of the winners are British. Wow. Okay, so that changes things for me. Who's British in the lineup that's not Mia McKenna-Bruce?
Sophie Wilde's Australian, and that leaves Phoebe Dinevere.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a stat breaker year and they go for Jacob Elordi because he is so big right now. I'm going to stick with Jacob Elordi, but I think Phoebe Dynevor is the next in line.
That's going to bring us to the conclusion of our BAFTA predictions here. For everyone out there, like I said at the beginning, if you made it this far, maybe consider a like, a comment, subscription. We would love to hear your thoughts, even if you disagree, because who knows, you may sway Nat or myself in some categories. But until next time, my name's Dyl.
And my name's Matt, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.